Hi, good day, everybody. Okay, so the topic given for this TED Talk to me was on the next chapter. And from where I stand today, when I look back at my life, it seems that my life has been a series of chapters, some extremely significant, and all these chapters, big or small, have actually made the person I am today. I'm on the verge of my next big chapter in my life, and the invitation to this talk could not have been better timed. My very first significant chapter probably started at the age of 9, and photography was my dad's hobby, which rubbed off onto me when I was 9 years old. I still clearly remember the day when he came and gave me his very prized Pentax MX camera, and he gave me a roll of film and told me to go out and shoot whatever I liked. So I took that roll of film. Yes, we did shoot on a film, and it sometimes took almost a week or a month till you didn't finish the roll. You couldn't even see your picture, so you had no idea what you had taken. So I went out, I shot nature. Nature was always something that got me right from childhood. I shot a lot of flowers, leaves, trees, all that kind of stuff. And, well, it was instant love for the whole process. And I've lived with a camera ever since and never looked back. Yeah. Now, my dad was a creative head in an ad firm. Yeah? And obviously, he was a great influence in my life and encouraged me to pursue photography. Now, he used to also take me trekking on weekends. And there began my other great love for travel. These are some of the images from my earlier days with the camera. And yeah, that's how it all started. So observing nature was one of the most important parts, and it really worked well. Then I did my graduation in ancient Indian culture from St. Xavier's College in Mumbai. And the reason I chose ancient Indian culture is for the simple reason the curriculum allowed us to travel to many parts of our beautiful country. And that allowed us to gain a much deeper understanding of our rich culture. So the camera was always my usual extension on all my trips. And these images are actually from those days when we traveled with the college. So we traveled to all the places, part of the ancient Indian culture. Down south, Shravan-Belgola. Now, my dad being in advertising, I was also regularly exposed to various aspects of commercial photography. Now, be it tabletop, fashion, industrial, lifestyle, etc. He would take me along every time he was shooting an interesting campaign. This was far more technical, and I thoroughly enjoyed observing how the pros in that day and age worked. Observing them was probably the most priceless form of education I got. That exposure has been responsible in shaping my personal way of seeing. The most important thing about that experience, and I still cherish that, is it taught me that photography was all about looking at the finer details. And photography required tremendous patience as well. So these are the kind of things that I was exposed to at that age. So I used to shoot tabletops, fashion, food photography, and of course interiors and spaces. Now after my graduation and some serious family opposition, I went to Australia to get formal training in photography. Now obviously the Indian mindset could not accept the fact that my dad was actually willing to send me abroad to study photography. So you're going to invest in your son to go and study photography, really. I mean, being a doctor, yes. Engineer, yes. So every time you went abroad, every Indian student I met was either studying to be a doctor or an engineer or business, any of that. But photography was completely unheard of. So, but fortunately, my dad was far more aware of the advertising fraternity, and therefore he encouraged me to go, and I'm glad I did. And here started my next chapter, where I took photography from being a hobby to a crafted skill. I did my diploma in scientific photography, which helped me explore other aspects of photography like infrared photography, ultraviolet, astronomical photography, microscopic photography. Now, these are just some examples. The assignment was to shoot a ray of light passing through a prism and breaking into the visible spectrum. There was one. This is cross-polarization, where this technique helps you study the stress in plastics, so you can point out the manufacturing defects. And obviously shooting bacteria under a microscope and studying how they operate. Now, apart from this steady growth in gaining knowledge in photography, what excited me most was travel. Living in a different country, observing the way people function, they look different, dress different. The sun was more vibrant in the southern hemisphere, the colors were far more saturated. All this further fed my love for travel and exploring different places. After I finished my studies in Australia, I had two choices in front of me. Either I take the money I had saved up and head back home and start my commercial career, or I could use that money to travel far and wide and explore a bit of our planet before I go back home. Now, I chose to embark on a backpacking journey. I started with Australia, where I was, traveled a bit around there, then went on to Indonesia, Bali, came to India for a small stop, and then went on to UK, Canada, USA, Mexico, Africa. All these journeys, absolutely no agenda. Whatever money I had, I just spent on traveling. I'd stay at youth hostels, and absolutely no agenda where I was going next, what I was going to do next. I used to take my camera, walk the streets in all these places. If I bumped into somebody, picked up some friends, took a ride, they were going somewhere, just tag along with them, get dropped off somewhere. So I spent a whole year doing all that. And then once I reached Africa, I traveled a bit there, and then all my money ran out. So had to head back home after that. But yeah, all that carefree travel over the whole year left a permanent impression on my mind, and I knew I had to combine my two passions, photography and travel. And these are some images that I did during all my travels. Some are recent, but these are from my backpacking days. So this was in Mexico, Australia, India. Commercial needs brought me back home, and I began my next chapter, commercial photography. I started doing the rounds of the agencies, meeting creative heads, magazine editors, designers, to get commercial assignments. Work started picking up, and I was really enjoying my space as a commercial photographer. Since I studied scientific photography, it definitely gave me an edge in the competitive market, and because I could handle almost any genre of photography. Now, to cut a long story short, I've been doing commercial work since I got back in '99 and continue doing it till date. And these are some of my campaigns. This was for fashion-related work, shooting celebrities. Food photography again. Shooting interiors and spaces, the entire ad campaign done for a furniture store in Mumbai called the Great Eastern Home. Shooting hotels, tabletops, jewelry, and I also did a lot of NGO work. So this campaign was for cruelty against animals. Now, during my commercial process, I also got an opportunity to teach as a guest lecturer in an international design school that had just opened up in Mumbai. I had no idea that a parallel chapter was starting in my life at that stage, but I just went with the flow. Now, before I knew it, I was being invited to other institutions, other design schools, photography schools, to come and give guest lectures or take workshops, and including Neerja Modi School, where I've come a couple of times and conducted photography workshops here as well. Now, the appreciation in teaching encouraged me to start my own brand of workshops and beginners courses in photography. Now, however, through this entire process, I never let go of my dream of combining travel and photography, and that always kept playing at the back of my mind. Also, commercial photography did allow me to travel a fair bit and explore our country even more, meeting new people, getting knowledge of different areas. All that really kind of kept pushing me towards travel and photography and seeing how to combine the two and make it into a lucrative business as well. Now, with that in mind, I started doing recce's across our country so that I could conduct photo safaris. Now, the core idea behind photo safaris is to take photographers and enthusiasts on a photography holiday where you take them to exotic destinations, ensuring that you are there at the right time with the best possible lighting conditions, and teach or guide them to get great images which they can cherish for a lifetime. Now, I traveled a great deal from 2004 onwards, making notes, studying different locations, and noting down the best time of year to travel there, best places to stay, things to do, what to teach, and most importantly, the way light would travel across those landscapes, monuments, architecture, and so on. So I could create the best possible opportunities for photographers who traveled with me to get the best images for themselves. So these are part of that series when I was traveling and doing all my recce's. This is Ranini Wow in Patan, Gujarat. The insides of a Khajuraho temple. The warm light that comes in early mornings and late afternoons. And the warmth that the morning sunrise brings or the evening sunset does. So all this is part of creating the right atmosphere and going to these locations at the right time so that you ensure you get the best possible pictures. Now, all these recce trips finally bore fruit in 2009 when I got an opportunity to take a bunch of 30 photography students on a photo safari to Kutch. Now, that was extremely well received and gave me great encouragement to pursue my dream with more vigor. However, the trip could only cover my costs. I started doing weekend photo safaris to Kana, Gir, Bandipur, Mysore, but they were all very small groups, and everybody appreciated the concept, kept encouraging me, and that kept me motivated. I kept going on. And these are some images from the 2009 photo safari trip to Kutch with all the photography students. So that was the White Run. This is part of Mandvi Palace. The Dhau building and breaking yard in Mandvi. And the bunch of photographers that traveled with me on that trip. Then, to 2012, I ventured to take my first international photo safari to Kenya, Masai Mara, and then another to Tanzania, Serengeti and Ngorongoro. Both were again very well received, and the people that traveled with me are now part of my extended family. They keep coming on practically all my trips. And unfortunately, I was still covering costs, still not breaking it into a good business. And of course, so you have to ensure you get into any kind of position, and as long as you get the best pictures. That's really important. You got to have that carefree spirit, and you really got to be a little wild and have to have a camera on all these trips, of course. And that is how we do it. So sometimes you try and, you do everything in your power to create the best possible opportunities, but then God gives you a helping hand. So we had these cheetahs climb on top of our jeeps, and, so it was just incredible, just coming that close to them. And very intimidating to start with. And then, they refused to move. They just kept sitting there for almost an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. We were just sitting on the jeep. So there were only 3 or 4 vehicles around us. And so we were shooting the cheetahs that were there on the other vehicles. Some were on our vehicles, so it just kept going on. And of course, the beautiful landscapes around Serengeti. Now in 2014, I tried to take one more photo safari during the absolute peak season to watch the great wildebeest migration in August. Being the height of peak season and choosing only the best hotels Mara has to offer, the cost for my trip was extremely high. I was nervous and anxious and extremely hopeful that I'll at least get 6 people so I can cover costs and still do this trip. The final date I could hold bookings was approaching, and I didn't have a single confirmation. So on a Saturday afternoon, I told my staff that we can just take this off, take the trip off social media, no point advertising it anymore since we don't have any takers for it. That very evening, I got a call from a celebrity and who was very keen on joining my trip and learn photography in the wild. So I had half the mind of telling them that, sorry, I've kind of called it off. But then I said, okay, what the hell, let's give it a shot. So I told them yes, I just confirmed their participation. And I sat down and started shooting my final reminder mails all over again to the entire mailing list. And sure enough, before nightfall, I had 3 more people who had confirmed for the trip. And I don't know how, but by Monday, I had 8 people ready to go on the trip. So it kind of just completely turned around when I had almost kind of given up on it. And by the time I was ready to go, I was at full capacity of 12 people for my first migration photo safari. And these are actually images from that very photo safari. So the lion, thank you. The Maribu stork taking off with the moon in the background, running free in the Mara. One of the most ferocious animals you'll see in the Mara, the wild buffalo. The king himself. And of course, the graphic design the zebras bring to your frame. The trip obviously went off really, really well, was extremely well received with everyone who came, and all of them have traveled with me again and again over the years. Now, photo safaris require meticulous planning right down to the last detail, and it does take up a lot of time and effort to put a trip together. I could finally see the result of putting in all those years of research, hard work, of pursuing my dream. When I see the joy and satisfaction on all the faces that travel with me, it makes my journey so much more fulfilling and complete. So this was part of that first migration photo safari that I did in August 2014. Now, starting this year, I confidently feel my next big chapter has finally begun. I've already done 3 photo safaris. This year, I've got 2 more coming up in August and in October. And I've already done 2 recce's as well. And truly feel that I'm going to explore as much of our stunning planet as possible, educating like-minded people who choose to travel with me, and in turn, learning a lot from them as well. Now, the gist of all this is you've got to try and excel at what you do. That is really the key. And you have to go out and find your dream and stick with it no matter how hard or impossible it may seem. Because if you've dreamt it, you will find the courage to fulfill it. Thank you.